Asalanka anchors the batting, Hasaranga anchors the bowling. Babar Azam is my favorite batsman to watch, whatever the format. I would pay money to watch him bat. We have two Sri Lankans in that top five.
සෝදුරු රසට මංචිකොමේ කියුමෙන්
Hi, hello, and welcome everybody to Around the Wickets on ThePapare.com. And we've just witnessed a crunchy World Cup finals between Australia and New Zealand, where Australia redeemed themselves to glory, winning the ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2021. So, talk through about the entire World Cup, I have a very special guest with me, former Sri Lanka cricketer Jehan Mubarak. Welcome to the show, Jehan.
Hi, Megan. Thanks for having me.
Of course, and I'm sure you had a good night yesterday watching the World Cup finals. And who were you banking, Australia or New Zealand?
No, I had my money on New Zealand, but they had a few last minute changes which I think affected them, and also the fact that they had to bat first really played into Australia's hands. My pre-tournament favorites had gone out by then anyway. Pakistan, England had also gone out, so I was banking on New Zealand, but unfortunately it didn't come through. But it was a really good final. Some a great innings by Kane Williamson, but an even better chase by Australia. They really deserve to win that final.
Of course, that was the word deserving. And I of course thought Australia was a deserving winner of the tournament. So talk me through about Australia's World Cup campaign, Jehan. I think they were not the firm favorites coming into the World Cup. I wouldn't have banked my money on Australia when they were starting the World Cup, but ended up being the champions. What do you think of their run in this 2021 World Cup, T20 World Cup?
Yeah, it just shows how great a team they are when it comes to World Cups and crunch matches. They know how to turn it on. Even though they had a stuttering campaign, they had the players on board, but none of them were really in form. They were not really clicking. But almost overnight, they managed to. David Warner came back into form. Pat Cummins, they adapted their game. Normally, the bowlers who bowl 140, 150. The great thing I liked about their campaign is how they adjusted to the different pitches from Abu Dhabi to Sharjah and to Dubai, and also to the different boundaries. Some grounds had short boundaries, some grounds had longer boundaries. So they were able to adjust their lengths, bowl a hard short ball up into your rib cage when needed, but also to take pace off the ball. And that flexibility in their bowling lineup. And I didn't mention Adam Zampa, who's been fantastic for Australia. So overall, I think they had a really good team which clicked just when it was needed, and it shows that under pressure, it doesn't matter how good you are on paper. You could have all the best players, but execution under pressure, that's where Australia came really good in that final.
Well, so let me know about that batting lineup change, bringing in Mitchell Marsh up the order. That was that how good was that tactic from, of course, the thinking camp of Australia?
I mean, that was a really bold call, but it worked for them even from the previous game because they played the extra batter. That gave them, the batsmen at the top, the confidence to go hard. In addition to the power play, they could go hard in the first 10 overs. A lot of other teams had a slightly different approach. They would attack in the first six, then consolidate from about six to the fourth, 15th or 16th over, because they knew that it would be easier once the dew set in towards the latter part of the innings, that they could accelerate. Australia didn't do that. They played the extra batsmen, gave their top order a bit more of a license and the freedom to attack the bowlers from the first ball itself, which put a lot of pressure on the opposition teams and even in New Zealand, because they had to, normally teams keep their best bowlers towards the end. They bowl them up front in the power play and they bowl them at the death. But when you are attacking right throughout that innings, the other team has to bring their best bowlers in even in that middle overs. So there was no respite, whether it was Pakistan or whether it was New Zealand. There was no respite because the Australian batsmen were always coming hard at them. Mitchell Marsh, the first ball he faced yesterday, he hit over square leg for six. And that showed the intent, and that put the entire New Zealand team under pressure.
Well, mentioning the unlucky New Zealand's, they are the unlucky run continues. Where do you think they lost the game last night? Of course, 2019 we saw one unlucky boundary go through, and this time, what
Yeah.
was it? What do you think it was?
Well, 2019 World Cup, they were unlucky. But last night, I don't think they were unlucky. I think they were just outplayed by a better team. Uh, if at all things could have changed was if they had put maybe attacked a little bit more in that first 10, the first six, I think they got only about 30 runs in the power play. So their approach was completely different to Australia's approach. They paced out their innings, kept wickets in hand to accelerate at the end, which worked really well. Williamson played a fantastic knock and got them up to 170 plus. But still, the way Australia were batting, like even 190 or even 200 may not have been enough. So they needed to do more in that first six or first 10 overs. They didn't have the batting depth for it. Devon Conway being ruled out was a huge blow. And they couldn't play the extra batsman because their bowling lacked a bit of depth with Lockie Ferguson missing out. I think that was a huge blow to New Zealand not having Ferguson. But overall, I think always at World Cups, New Zealand punch way, way above their weight. They play brilliantly as a unit. And I don't think they'll be too disappointed. They are the kind of team that will pick themselves up from this and be ready for the next World Cup in Australia next year. And they'll be looking to win that in November next year.
Of course, I mean, New Zealand have been silently the most successful team in World Cups for the past three World Cups which we have seen. Of course, this year, of course, they have been in 2019 World Cup finals, the Test Championship finals, and now T20 World Cup finals. All three formats they have been playing really well in the recent past. Of course, moving on, Jan, uh, what do you reckon of Aaron Finch as a captain? Personally, I wouldn't have thought Aaron Finch would be a World Cup winning captain when they appointed him amidst a lot of fickle going around in Australia's domestic and international cricketing scene there. So, were you expecting Aaron Finch to win a World Cup for them, or a word on his captaincy?
Uh, a captain is only as good as his team. A lot of players, a lot of people talk about having excellent captains, brilliant captains, but you've got to have the team around it. And it makes it a lot easier when you have talented players. But one thing Finch did well was he kept that team together in the same way that Morgan does for England. He was able to get the best out of that team. So even though he didn't have the greatest lead up to the World Cup, his batting form itself was under question. He was able to get the team to perform. And sometimes that is harder to do than to perform yourself. And especially in T20 cricket, short format of the game, you don't need as many batters. You need just three or four batters to click two partnerships, two new games, and 100% energy on the field. So that is something that Australia did right throughout the World Cup. And that is Finch. So Finch has been able to get that team together and performing when needed. So I don't think we can question. In hindsight, we can say, okay, it was a great team effort. But hats off to Aaron Finch. Even when people questioned him, he's won them a World Cup. So he goes into one of the all-time greats in that Australian history.
There's a thing from your country that I'm totally hooked on, and I am not talking about your tea.
Lanka tiles, designed for you, desired by the world.
Of course, I mean, congratulations to Finchi. Of course, you at the start of this program, you mentioned that for your favorite, one of my favorite, Pakistan were not there in the finals, and talk about England. So it is quite clear that you are banking yourself on Pakistan. So talk of Pakistan's campaign, and of course also England, who has been one of the leading white ball teams. How good were those two teams in the World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, on paper, they were the best. And India. India went out very early, lost to two good teams in New Zealand and Pakistan in the first round. But Pakistan and England, I thought on paper they had the most balanced team, most experienced players in T20 cricket. Pakistan able to take wickets up front with Afridi. They had the spinners in Shadab Khan. and the death bowlers. Uh, but it shows that in World Cups, it's very difficult to remain unbeaten and win championships. You're going to lose. Like if you're going to play 8, 9, 10 games in a row, the law of averages show that you're going to lose one game. The problem is when that game comes towards the end, it's often a semi-final or a final. So that's what happened to Pakistan, and that's what happened to England. So when you have a long campaign, you remain unbeaten for such a long period of time, you're bound to have a bad game. So both those teams, unfortunately, had their bad game at the end of their campaign at the semi-final. They were also affected by injuries. Rizwan and Shoaib Malik both being ill. Rizwan was in ICU for a couple of days before the semi-final. England lost Jason Roy, which was a huge blow to them, and also Timal Mills. He was their go-to bowler at the death. Losing him was a big issue for them. So, I mean, all in all, it's what it is. It's cricket. Teams that have better bench strength in campaigns come through. We've seen that not only in cricket, in all sports. When you go into tournaments, especially with COVID, you go into a bubble. You might lose players along the way. So having a strong bench is really, really important, especially when it comes to finals and semi-finals.
Of course, well, very interesting thought there. Having a special bench, a very good bench, will of course strengthen a team. Speaking of the two teams, and of course the way you spoke of Pakistan, speak of Babar Assam, their captain. How good was he as a batsman throughout the tournament? 303 runs and an average of 60 and whatnot, 450s in the tournament. How good was he? How good was Babar Assam?
Yeah. Babar Azam is my favorite batsman to watch, whatever the format. I would pay money to watch him bat. It's just beautiful to watch him bat. He's effortless, and he just times the ball so easily. And in T20 cricket, people always think about that you need to hit the ball hard, hit big boundaries, muscle the ball. These big, strong players like Mitch Marsh or Pollard or Gale. Babar Azam showed the complete opposite, how it's able to score runs quickly with conventional cricket strokes, running hard between the wickets, lots of ones and twos, but also just timing and placement. And he's a great example, a role model for any young kid growing up to show that you can play in the same way across all three formats, T20, one day, or Test cricket. And he's a great ambassador for the game and a great ambassador for batsmen as well.
Of course, Babar Assam is, of course, pleasing on the eyes to watch. And looking at that chart, most run scorers chart, Jehan, another name that strikes is David Warner. Had a terrible IPL, I should say. I mean, dropped out of Sunrisers way early, and he was struggling. And what do you think of his innings, or else his transformation coming into the World Cup, wearing that Australian jersey? Scored 289 runs and at an average of 48, and striking over 145 runs. He of course known for it. What do you reckon out? What do you take out of his run?
Well, the biggest takeaway out of Warner's campaign is the confidence that he never ever drops in confidence. Like he could have the worst run of form, play the worst shot, or get the best ball, but he's always so confident when he goes out to bat. He dropped from SRH, as you said, but when he came into the World Cup, he knew that he just needed to spend some time at the crease, and that's what he did early on. He just batted for time, spent time at the crease. Even in that West Indies game, which they were winning, he wanted to be there at the end. He wanted to be not outs. He wanted to spend that time at the crease, and he's one of those players. Once they get in, their form stays for long periods of time. So he just wanted to get that. And after that, he's just been going at the bowlers and he adapts his game very well against the outswing of Bolt. He was very smart. He didn't take too many risks against Bolt. He took on Saudi. He took on Milne. He took on the spinners, Santner and Sodhi. He's very smart about how he went about his game. And when you have a guy like that at the top of the order, who is able to adapt his game and also runs hard between the wickets. At the top, he'll get you runs and he'll also see the innings through. and it gives the freedom for guys like Mitch Marsh, Maxwell, Stoinis to come and just go from ball one.
Well, there's one other name in that list which I would be interested to talk of. Charita Salanka, given Sri Lanka and his campaign, is the fifth highest scorer of the tournament, and this being his debut tournament, debut World Cup. How good was Charita Salanka?
Yeah. Find of the tournament as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. I mean, a lot of people knew what he was capable of back home. He's played domestic cricket, hasn't had the greatest success in domestic cricket, but he's exceptionally talented, and he has shown us that. And again, across all formats, I see potential in him, not in just T20 cricket, in that mainstay, hopefully at number three, to perhaps finally fill that Sangakkara's void at number three, which a lot of people have been talking about. And I think we may have finally found that replacement.
Wow, wow, wow! That's something big and huge to come from Jehan Mubarak. Charit, if you are watching this, and to fill Sangakkara's void, that itself is great. Well, we've come to the last question of the program, Jehan, and but I don't think this person which we are going to speak of is never the least. Last but not the least, Vanidu Asranga, highest wicket taker of the tournament. Well, Adam Zampa, you spoke of Zampa. He's the second highest wicket taker, picked up 13 wickets. The rest follows names like Trent Bolt, Shakib Al Hasan, Josh Hazlewood. But Manidu Hasaranga de Silva stands out, isn't he? 16 wickets in the tournament. Speak of him.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, again, we have two Sri Lankans in that top five. Um, it's really really good. We have a batsman and a bowler. Vaninu throughout the last 2 years, he's done exceptionally well. He's shown the value of a wrist spinner, especially in white ball cricket, and his accuracy. He's always hitting the stumps. If you take one of his pitch maps, it's all LBW balls. So whenever a batsman is facing against him, there's always the threat of getting out, and that puts a lot of pressure on the batter. He knows that he can't just go out there, take risks, and go after the ball. There's a high chance of him getting out, and the deception in the variation in speed. He adjusts to the wicket as well. So I think Vani Hasaranga is someone who can, along with Charit Asalanka anchors the batting, Hasaranga anchors the bowling, and we've got two solid players to build our team around. So I do hope that November, as much as I spoke about New Zealand in November, I think Sri Lanka, if we work with this team that we have, that we can go semi-finals, finals, and why not even win the championship in November?
Well, we spoke of Vanidu's bowling, Jehan, but I don't think he is a mutt with a bat either. He himself reckons
Yeah.
himself as a batting all rounder, in fact. So, to speak of Vanidu's batting there.
Yeah. Adds that so much value to the captain when you have your number one bowler in T20 cricket, who can also bat. It's amazing. He can bat at the top of the order. He can bat in the middle. He can bat at the end. There are a few areas that he needs to work to at the top of the order, but I think that's very easily done. It's a quick fix, and he's able to, his hands are so good, especially through the off. He can maneuver the ball into gaps. His timing is excellent, and he's a very difficult batsman to keep quiet. So along with his batting, we can't undervalue his. Along with his bowling, we can't undervalue his batting. He had so much value with the bat as well, and a complete package in terms of a genuine all rounder.
Well, that's about it. Vanidu Asranga, a genuine all-rounder, and as you mentioned, every Sri Lankan will be looking forward for that next World Cup in Australia to come in New Zealand on November. So that, as you mentioned, maybe we can go for semi-finals, finals, or even win the World Cup. And thank you very much, Jan, for joining us on today's episode of Around the Wickets and sharing your interesting and valuable thoughts. And yeah, thank you for joining us, John.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for having us. All the best.
Well, all the best to you, and also for Sri Lanka, who is gonna go for another World Cup in Australia in November, and that will come very very soon. I'll tell you that. And with that, we'll wrap around the wickets of for this episode. And until we see you with another interesting episode, soon. And it's me, Sharmeegan Sridheran, signing off.
අපේ කොල්ලන්ට ලංකාවේ අපේ ජාතික පැතුම් එක් කරන ඩයලොග්.
Stay on the ball with the Papare sports news alerts. Don't miss out on what's happening in the world of sport. Type sports and send to 678 to register. 30 rupees per month. Conditions apply.